Hey guys, welcome to Export Fundas. This is episode 4. It's the first time we are live. So Jagatji, hope you're super excited for our first live. We're trying
Absolutely.
out different formats. So hoping that this works out well. This is another indicator, my goal with the live is to make it interactive and to make sure that, as an audience as well, you get a chance to participate with us. So let's get started with our main topic of today, which is the rise of India's IT export powerhouse. India was often referred to as the world's back office, and now it is transformed into a global IT powerhouse, contributing significantly to the digital economy across the globe, various regions. And in this episode, me and Jagatji will dive deep into this sector. We'll figure out how to navigate an IT export business, what are some nuances, what is some impact which Indian firms have created across the globe. So Jagatji, let's set up the context. Can you give us a quick overview of the IT sector?
Yes, thanks, Nikhil, and congrats on the first live session. And Nikhil, I always start by talking about Bharat being Sone ki Chidiya,
Right.
right? When we were Sone ki Chidiya, it was a knowledge economy, and
Correct.
we had 25% of the GDP of the world. Today, we are talking of IT. IT is nothing but a knowledge economy, a
Correct.
part of knowledge economy. Uh, India's era is the knowledge era is back. And so if I have to really use a little bit different way, I will say the birth year, the birth year of IT in India, I will say 1967. Because
Okay.
1967, which is what, like, almost 50, 55, more than that years back, uh, TCS was born. Not many people may know. TCS started in 1967, right? And in 1973, we had the first CPES, which is the free zone, special economic zone, for IT. And 1981 is when Infosys started.
Okay.
1981, right? And in 1988, we organized the IT industry organized itself into a forum which is called now NASCOM. So NASCOM started in 1988, and
Okay.
it was the voice of the IT industry to lobby with the government of India, and the vision was to go future and work with foreign countries. Uh, in 1991, a Gujarati guy again, Devang Mehta.
Okay.
He was the president of NASCOM for 10 years, 1991 to 2001.
Okay.
It is a tragedy that at a very young age of 39, he died. And
Oh.
but he is the one who transformed. I will call him the pioneer of
Okay.
the organizing the IT sector of India into a forum. So he was the president of NASCOM, very dynamic. I still remember, 1998, 99. I used to have a lot of conversations, a lot of meetings with him, and amazing guy, amazing dynamic person, and I pay tribute to his soul today. And so that is the history. And then in 2001, India's total IT industry was $6.2 billion.
Okay.
6.2 billion, right? 10 years from there, 2011, it was $59 billion. I'm talking of,
Wow.
and now I'm talking of export, 59
Okay.
billion dollar export.
Okay.
Because in India, IT consumption was less.
Right.
Even today, IT consumption as part of the total IT industry, India is less. Again, 10 years down the line, 2021, which is
Hmm.
nearer to what we are now, was
Hmm.
$178 billion.
Wow.
India's IT exports. But
Okay.
the most interesting transformation is between 2021 to 2023.
Hmm.
It is $320 billion. 178 to $320 billion. Imagine.
Wow.
And 55% of this is our exports to US.
Wow. Okay.
And yes, and 30% is to Europe,
Okay.
all countries put together. Uh, and our exports, for example, to Canada is 1.5%.
Okay.
To Japan is 1%, right?
Right.
And now what are these? What is this which we are exporting? What are we doing? So we have IT services, of course. IT services, let me tell you, is 54% of total exports
Hmm.
of India.
Okay.
And then you have BPM, your business process management, where
Correct.
foreign companies are transferring their business processes to India
Right.
because we have good quality skilled workforce, we have cost competitiveness, we have English language proficiency, the
Correct.
government policy is very conducive. So for various reasons, and business process management is 23% of exports of IT from India. And then
Okay.
you have your engineering, research and development, software products,
Hmm.
which is again 23%.
Okay.
So between these three is the composition. And when you talk of engineering, research and development software, we talk of automotive sector, telecom sector, aerospace sector, electronics, electrical, all
Hmm.
these sectors, including telecom software. Then on another at another level, we have BPO, business process outsourcing, right,
Hmm.
where there is these consumer services,
Hmm.
your tech support which we are
Right.
providing,
Right.
accounting outsourcing, HR outsourcing, LPO, your legal process outsourcing, then medical transcription work, the voice recording which the doctors have in the developed countries has to be converted into text. So all these back office operations is still quite large, and that is where the, where India is standing today. At the same time, let me tell you something interesting. Out of I think I made a mistake in a figure. Out of $320 billion, the $320 billion is total IT market of India, which includes export. Out of this, 51 billion is domestic market,
Okay.
right? So 51 billion. I make this clarification. Uh, but one interesting fact, of all the exports which India does in IT to the world, ITES, we are holding 11% of the world market share, which is
Oh,
which is very interesting because we
we've
are
not even
hardly,
scratched the surface.
yeah, but we are 11%, and at the same time, like we have 2 to 3% GDP of the world, right? But in IT we are 11% of the world market, which is something we should feel proud about, right?
Absolutely.
So, and of course 79-80% of India's IT industry is exports, right? And can you guess, Nikhil, how many IT companies would be there in India currently?
I don't know about 2000.
740,000.
My goodness.
We have 740,000 IT companies in India.
Wow.
Micro,
Okay.
small, medium, right? So
Wow.
that's the background from 1967 to 2024.
That's massive. 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 Okay. That sets up a
Right.
great context. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
Okay. So that's how I guess we hit those numbers.
right. Absolutely, absolutely. However, the thing remains that, let me tell you, we have NASCOM, which is the national body which represents the IT sector in India. They have about 3,200 members.
Hmm, hmm, hmm,
3,200 members, but we have 740,000 IT companies in India.
hmm,
And but even NASCOM, 80% of their members, almost 2,500, are SMEs, are IT
hmm, hmm,
SMEs,
hmm,
right?
hmm, hmm.
So it is for the IT SMEs now to jack up and move to, higher, move to medium, large size, because you see, 1967 TCS was an SME,
Correct.
right? 1981 Infosys was an SME.
Correct.
Right.
Everyone starts there.
Yes. So we should actually, Indian IT SMEs should look as case studies, that how companies like Wipro and Tech Mahindra and HCL and Lately, Larsen to Grow, Infotech, and Putney, and NIIT, and Polaris, and all these companies, how they became large. And
Right.
as time changes, things have changed, but it's a very interesting background of IT SMEs, for IT SMEs to look at global markets.
So, guys, this particular episode is actually not targeted to the top 10 IT service companies, of course. It's for the rest 7 lakh 390,990 companies which are trying to, get there, get where TCS has got, get where Infosys has got. So, let's start with this, Jagatji. Before that, do you want to highlight any significant, milestone about the Indian IT sector and what you're looking forward to in the future before we get into?
So, our Prime Minister, Honorable Narendra Bhai Modi, has given overall a target of India touching 5 trillion economy by 2025 and a developed economy by 2047, which is very visionary. Very rarely we see such long-term plans by the country's leadership. We should be very proud of what leadership vision has been presented, and it is targeted that by 2030 India should touch $1 trillion exports in IT.
Wow.
one
Okay.
trillion dollar, which is, I think, very much achievable. And if that happens, then it is also expected that our total export of merchandise as well as services should be $2 trillion. Then so out of that, if 50% is coming from services, that is in the right direction.
Absolutely. So, guys, with that set for all of us small SME IT companies out there, Jagatji, let's start with the very first segment. This is something which everyone worries about first before they, think about approaching global markets. Uh, which is navigating regulatory waters across different sectors. And there's been a lot of, I feel, fear mongering around this space. So, Jagaji, can you just give us, educate us on this? If you're an IT company, how you should think about this?
Yeah, so now I will also like to, before I come to that, I would like to also mention that, if you see, the new startups which are in India, that the in the IT space, that has a very good, for them this is very interesting aspect of a regulatory framework. So some of the companies which are very upcoming and emerging in the startup space in India are companies like your Anatomec, Assert AI, your Blues Aero, aerospace, a lot of companies, Clearfeed, there's Eugene AI, Minus Zero, several of these companies. Skyroot Aerospace is becoming very good, very, very popular. And companies like, for example, TCS sales turnover is around $27 billion. If you look at Infosys, it is $18 billion. How they navigated the regulatory framework. Your Wipro is $11 billion. HCL Tech is $12 billion. Tech Mahindra is $6.5 billion. So these companies have cracked the regulatory aspect, and that is why even if we try to look at some case studies and study as a market research, it will give us a direction. But the regulatory framework as far as India is concerned is very simple. You need an very, very simple, you need an import export code number, which is given by Director General of Foreign Trade as an exporter of IT services. And you, of course, you need the PAN number. And then there is a foreign trade policy which covers IT exports. One important aspect to understand is FEMA Act, Foreign Exchange Management Act, because there is a lot of inflow and outflow of money in terms of foreign exchange. So there are some aspects of foreign exchange compliance which every IT company should be aware of. Because see, understand one thing, Nikhil, that when we talk of IT, sir, we are talking of a intangible product. It's a
Correct.
service, right? So there is a FEMA provisions, and then there are, of course, your export declaration and export documentation which is required. And government of India set up a software technology park very early, and software technology parks were where export oriented IT companies were based, and they had tax exemptions and so many benefits, some incentives also. So that also played a very big role, including SEZs in boosting Indian exports. Now, if you are looking at uh, the regulatory aspects and legal aspects of exports in foreign country perspective, then, for example, uh, we have acts like GDPR, which is in Europe, which is
Correct.
about protection of the data, and then you have Digital Personal Protection Act in India, which came in 2023, which has mentioned clauses on consent, and then there are some sector specific rules for storage of data, right? And then there are whole range of intellectual property rights, IPR related regulatory aspects, which we have to be keep in mind in terms of US, because I told you US 55% of India's export of IT services is to US, the largest market, and 30% to Europe. Put together is 85%. So both of them have very strict IPR regime, where any proprietary tech any proprietary technology has to have protection. There has to be a brand protection, trademark protection, and all this can be done through licensing agreements. So you have to design good agreements, and you have to have an IPR management team, or outsource it, and get an understanding uh, about this aspect, because that is the very critical aspect. Many times I have seen a small SME, IT SME, have ignored this and got into deep trouble, because the legal aspects of these developed countries are very very strict. So
So
one
to
should prepare.
add to this, I the people who are following AI, right, Jagatji?
Yes,
Recently, this was the news which came out. I'm sure you must have seen this,
correct, correct,
that an ex Google engineer was charged with stealing AI trade secrets, working with Chinese
correct.
companies. So
True,
this
true.
just happened yesterday, day before yesterday.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh yeah.
And I have, of course, not heard stories like this from India. But as you said, if small companies have gotten into trouble, this is something which they should really, really be careful about.
Yes. In fact, when American companies are talking to Indian companies as a prospective supplier of services, they ask them, what are the data protection tools you have? What is the mechanism you are following? Because you see, let me tell you um, one aspect of this is the high attrition rate in Indian IT companies. There's a very high attrition rate.
Right.
So then when the person is leaving your company, then is your data protected? So they make sure that what mechanisms have you put in place, by which, so until and unless you prove that, they don't onboard you as the supplier.
Correct.
Hmm.
So yeah, guys, please be very, very careful about this. And I mean, if you have specific questions, let us know in the comment section below. We will address it. But Jagati, let's move forward. So one is very strict IP laws. What else?
No, IP laws, then your data protection, all these acts in data protection.
Right.
Uh, that's it, basically compliance. There is not much, otherwise there is not much compliance required. But of course, then there are business compliances like ISO certified company. Then you have
Right.
management hierarchy. What is your bench for? What,
Right.
what strength you have on the bench? What is your workforce? What are the skills you have in your company, like AIML talent, your fintech related talent, ed tech, space tech, health tech. So uh, depending on what is the expectation, they will each company will look at those type of skills in your company.
Okay. Guys, let's move on to the next segment, which is more of other challenges, not necessarily related to uh, regulation, but other, global political challenges, policy challenges, which Indian companies have started facing in the recent years. So, Jagaji, any thoughts on this before we get into how you should approach a market and penetrate?
No, so if you see US market,
Mhm.
as I said, 55% of our India's IT exports is to US.
Mhm.
The kind of challenges which are in US is more visa related, right?
Mhm.
So if suppose and there is an IT SME who says, okay, I want to enter American market.
Mhm.
So there are different approaches at different stages they can adopt. One is be here in India and try to communicate and get some business, or and over a period of time, what like all these top 10 or top 20 companies, what they have done is they then registered a company in Europe and US, and then they had the company registered there. But then if you are registering, for example, a company in US, you will also have to follow US export control regulation. So that understanding is required. Then H1B visa. See, workforce, when you say you register a company in US, means what is going to be the workforce? If the workforce is Indian, and that is because of the reasons of cost competitiveness and skills and English language, and then you will need an H1B visa. So H1B visa is a temporary employment visa in US, which is given for 3 years, and which is you get extension of 6 years, and then one can apply for green card. Then there is another route which is L1, right? So L1 is the transfer of employees from foreign company to the US company. So there is two categories: L1A, which is for managers and executives, and then there is L1B, which is for workers with specialized knowledge, which covers the IT sector. Again, there you get 3 years, which is extendable up to 7 years. But if you are a new company, now this is interesting, and this very few people have taken into consideration. If you are a new company in US, then you get L1 only for 1 year, right? And then it is extendable. So and but L1 is also for spouse. It is for children accompanying, and also the spouse can apply for work authorization also. So this is something which is actually a big burning issue, because there is a cap on H1B visas, and otherwise it's a very free economy, particularly US, and it is very freely Indian IT companies can work there.
Okay, let's move on. Internally, when you're dealing with this, like how do you ensure your GST is in place? Any insights into taxes or any other, compliances which a business owner should be aware of?
Yeah. So see, in exports, whether merchandise or services, there is no we cannot export taxes, right? That is very basic. So GST is not exportable, and therefore there is no GST in export. Even in IT export, there is no GST. But there is some you there are some regulations by which you can just like pay 0.1%, and then forget about it, or you pay GST and then claim it back, which is a long and cumbersome process. And there is no IT exemption now. Earlier there was a IT exemption in software technology parks and SEZs, but no more, right? So now it has become quite simple. The GST regime is so simple, and with input norms, and very very smooth. And in fact, GST is very interesting. While I always say that the IT adoption in India is low, but the IT adoption by government of India is very high. The IT adoption by non-IT companies, particularly in the manufacturing sector in India, IT adoption is low. The GST of India is a example for the world today only because of the IT, which made it possible. It is the IT part of GST compliance which has made life of everybody so easy. You today you ask any entrepreneur in India, and you say how is are you comfortable with GST? I don't think anybody will come up saying it's a problem. It is very
The
smooth.
only complaint I have is GST is too high sometimes.
Yeah, that's okay. That's we are still a developing country, and we need those resources. Government needs those resources to work in underdeveloped areas of India and the underprivileged. So that is a big discussion. But but it is very smooth. The system is very smooth, and the reason for that is the IT backend. For it. Even you see UPI. See all these. Recently, I recall on TV, the our Indian Prime Mr. Modi was showing the how UPI is operating in a vegetable market to the German Chancellor. UPI is also an example of IT, right? And he was also very surprised. And of course, the whole world is taking India as a case study, that how such a large country with a large population which is not educated, how there is so much of digital literacy. There is so much of digital literacy in India today, right? Everybody is using smartphone and everybody is using these payment mechanisms. In fact, now, if I'm not wrong, I don't know exactly, but 13, 14 countries have allowed UPI payments in their country.
Absolutely, and I'm 100% sure that your Mastercards and Visas of the world are sweating.
Yeah, naturally. Yeah, naturally, because I mean that is this is the IT success of India.
Right. Let's move on to the next part. What are how so this is something which I've heard a lot of people, a lot of especially small IT service entrepreneurs complain about, is trying to figure out forex, trying to figure out foreign exchange, currency fluctuations. Uh, like what did you say to such to such entrepreneurs who are stuck up or unable to navigate that space correctly?
No, so it is not complicated actually. So if you see if an Indian IT SME wants to enter global markets, then there are some trade barriers, there are some currency fluctuations, and then regulatory environment. The only challenge I see is language, accent. Particularly if you are talking of US or Europe, when we do calling from India. Even if it is not a cold call, even if the call has been set up, the accent is something which is a challenge, right? And then time difference. This I have found to be a huge challenge. Time difference. Our night is the morning in the US, for example, or even Europe. Uh, but there are not many youngsters in India or workforce who is ready to work in that time zone. So that is another challenge. Currency fluctuation has always been a challenge in every export scenario, but in Indian case, of course, our currency fluctuation is in the way it is going is benefiting Indian exports. And the US regulation. See, the US regulation part of it is your again same thing. IPR, the data protection, privacy laws, the cyber security standards which they have, then the visa requirements in US. Then they have the NI they have what the NIST standards. So those standards have to be understood and complied with, and otherwise there is no barrier. I have always felt that a reasonable size of IT SME in India should actually explore either in US or Europe to open up an office, because that will kickstart them to a very high and fast movement into the market. That type of investment plan should be put in place. Actually, they should try and get some. It should be considered like a startup fund, really, not a startup, but a startup fund to take their company to the global markets and try to get investment by showcasing that you have got the talent pool. The only thing you are missing is the market access part of it, and here is the market access plan, which will involve opening a company, hiring people there, and which will involve a lot of cost. And many IT SMEs cannot bear that cost, so they can get funded for that. And if some angel investors or VC funds and all those, they see that you got the talent and some particular product also, then that is what will take. And one also important thing is specialization. So IT SMEs should specialize on one thing. There are a lot of IT SMEs which are very general on many things. There are companies who say I will do any software development. So then any software development means no software development, right? Because you should be you should have some specialization either in sector or in some area, and that should be good enough, I think, for Indian IT SMEs to enter global markets and even explore other markets like Not just these two. It doesn't matter if 85% is US and Europe. Still, 15% market also is a big market size to tap
Yeah,
into.
just
And
to
for
add to
yeah,
this, I work with few companies, and they've seen great traction in Australia, in UAE.
yes,
One thing I want to add to everyone, right? Uh, this is something which one of the top leaders in one of these IT service companies had told me, and it was very interesting. Jagaji, I mean, you can also add to this. There's this
yes,
perspective that uh, IT companies are coming to India to set up their whatever, like to hire teams here because it's cheaper. But one of the IT companies heads told me that it's not that it's cheaper; it's that in my country, if I try to hire a team of 20 engineers, I will not find 20 engineers who will be qualified for the job. In India,
correct.
I'll file 10,000.
True, true, of course. That's why we have 740,000 IT SMEs
Exactly. Yeah.
in India.
So now, guys, the main. Uh, oh, sorry. Before we go to the next part, which is going to be the main part of the podcast, what about the global uncertainties in IT, Jagaji? How does one navigate that?
Yeah. So okay. So let me also then speak some points on this, some aspects of regulation. So which we in Europe, particularly GDPR. GDPR is a very. I will encourage all the listeners to check out on the GDPR law and also the privacy laws. Lately, you must have seen that lot of big companies like Google and all have been penalized in a very big way. Same way there is CCPA Act in US, and there is a Cyber Security Act which is NIST, and then you have your standard contracting clause. This is something which should be kept in mind in Europe. There are some standard contracting clause which should cover all the parameters. Now coming to the economic uncertainties, so that has always been there since hundreds of years. Uh, Economic uncertainty has always been there. I don't recall any year where there was total economic stability in the world. But if we talk of 2024, then we are talking of the Ukraine war, we are talking of the Gaza war, and a lot of disruption in merchandise exports. But overall, there is a little bit seen as slowdown global economy. There is going to be elections in US in November this year. The consumption in developed countries is going a bit down. There is a huge shift in tech demand. There is a big shift in tech demand towards AI. The consumption of AI is going like never I have seen any new development in tech taking this kind of a shape which AI is taking. Every day, not every hour, there is a huge shift in the tech demand on the AI space. Then you have your immigration challenges, your visa challenges, visa policies for the workforce, and I will add two more elements to that. One is the insecurity also. Of late we have been reading that a lot of because many people in developed countries they feel that people from outside the country are coming and taking away their jobs, right? And it is not so because whenever even when you take people on H1B visa or L1 visa, you still have to follow the wage act of those countries, right? So but that's the kind of a feeling at a political level. So that is also one challenge, and also evolving digital taxes. This is something which is a new thing, and every country is now looking at taxing many of these things because they see this as a source of revenue, right? But these are some of the economic uncertainties which is presently there, but they are all surmountable, and uh, they are all
Nothing which is like a huge barrier which will just
yes,
stop
no,
business.
no, no, because you see, all said and done, let me say, all the leading economies in the world, particularly the developed countries, they know that for their growth itself, for example, take the insurance segment of US, or take the healthcare segment, or take the sector of education, or take banking. None of them can survive without India's IT support. I mean, grow. They can't grow. Even some of them can't survive. So, and those that type of talent you don't get in those countries at those cost and that hardworking. kind of a nature of the people, and spontaneous way. We are very enterprising. Indians are very enterprising, and particularly the Indian youth of today is very much, it is like, I will say, a global benchmark in youth. Not only in terms of the technology understanding, but culture, value system, moral ethics, so many things. So that is a very, very interesting combination for any country to have.
So, guys, I mean, that's what global uncertainties will never go. Jagatji can talk from a rich experience of 30 plus years. So, there's no doubt about that. Let's move on to the main segment of this podcast, which is for, you know, all the SMEs out there trying to become your next TCS Infosys. What strategic growth and market penetration activities, strategies, tactics you can share with everyone? How do you think they should go about it? What are some mistakes you have seen IT service companies make? Right? Can you educate us a little, and some case studies of how this is actually uh, either worked in a good way or a bad way?
So that's very interesting, Nikhil. So if you see, there are various stages, and IT SME should start by hiring some people who will have a good understanding of product and also sales talk knowledge, and start by doing some smart calling, not cold calling, smart calling, and use tools like there are tools like Apollo, and AI driven tools, and LinkedIn, and sales navigator, and do lead generation and communicate. But in the long run, what is going to work is, because see, no, very rarely it would happen that someone becomes your long term customer without meeting you in this space. So you have to travel, to that country, you have to visit, and then you can register a company. Registering a company is not a big deal, it's not a big cost, right? Or you can have a partner, I think almost at least 80% of the IT SMEs I know of have a partner in US, right? The large companies, of course, have their own setup, and like we were working with a very interesting project called e-governance about in 2010 or 12, and we were working with IT SMEs to connect them to global market, and this is the realization I had, that a lot of successful IT SMEs have partners abroad. So that is one model, to have partner. Many a times we feel that I'm myself an IT company. How can I make an IT company in US or Europe or Japan, for that matter, or UK, or anywhere? My partner. It not competition? It is not, because I'll give you an example. You said of a case study. So actually, one of the student from our Global Network Institute, he migrated to Canada, and he is now doing Canadian government projects on IT space. And the condition in those projects are that only Canadian companies can bid. So he's a Canadian company, he bids, but then he outsources a lot of that work to Indian companies, in fact, to our own student companies, right? So that is called the partnership model, right? Of course, then that Canadian company looks at the strength and everything, and cost benefit also. And the most interest, I was talking to him, what is your number one challenge in fulfilling government of Canada projects from India as an outsource model? And he said two things. One, he said the in India youngsters are not ready to work in the night, because the Canadian government needs tech support in their daytime, and their daytime is our night time. So that is one challenge which was very surprising to me, but interesting with such a large population of India. And the second challenge is the attrition. So they said, if it's a 1 year project and there is a team based on which they got a project, two members of the team leave in that Indian company. So then that becomes a challenge. So that is for the Indian SMEs to work out how they are going to solve this challenge. But and then one not many IT SMEs know, and I must tell that they should try this, is join associations there, right? So for example, yeah, if you take US, then there are associations like ISSA, ISA, POMTIA, there is ACM, IEEE, ITI, there is a Tech America, TECNA, CTA, there is a Silicon Valley Leadership Group. So there are a lot of association in every state in US, in Europe also, in every country, which are IT focused. In fact, NASCOM also has US operations. NASCOM from India also has US operations. Same way, if you look at Europe, in Europe there is a association called Development Digital SME Association. There is
Jagaji, I
ECTA.
have a small
Hmm.
follow up to ask you here. Sorry to
Yes.
interrupt you,
No, no, no
but
problem.
when you say associations, right? I've heard of people join associations and do all of that, but after they join associations, how do they actually convert it into business? What are they supposed to do?
Yeah, so what has happened in during pandemic is that a lot of these bodies which bring together similar companies started doing a lot of online activities. Okay, so because gatherings were banned and closed, so that created a habit of and after pandemic has subsided, those activities have become hybrid. So what you can do is even online you can visit, and when you go to the country, there are a lot of events which they do. There are a lot of tech seminars they do, tech expos they do, like, and you can participate in that. Some of these institutions I know, like Tech UK, has got B2B matchmaking services for members, only for members. They will do matchmaking for you, right? If you are a member, take advantage of the matchmaking services. Then delegations are coming from those countries to India through the associations. If you are a member, you will be able to meet them. And regular events which they do, even online and offline, you can participate. So that is always the benefit in it is called institutional capital, right? There are 7 forms of capital. In the last episode we were talking, and institutional capital is a high form of capital. So these institutions is something we should network with and piggy ride, right? So that is one aspect which not many IT SMEs do, but they should do. Do your homework and find out one institution which is matching to your. In fact, there are a lot of SME related IT associations in Europe and also US, where only SMEs can join as members. So that is good, because you would like to do business with an SME. And then visit the country, meet your existing clients or meet prospects, take part in exhibition. For example, if you look at US, there is a exhibition which happens every year in January. Now next is 7 to 10 January in 2025, which is called CES, says CES Expo.
Yeah, the
This
Consumer
time,
Electronics Show.
yes, this year in January there were 4,300 booth, and there are 1,400 startups there and 135,000 visitors. It was in Las Vegas. Next year also is in. We took a delegation there of IT SMEs, and every year we take delegations. So like that, there are many expos which happen, even for specifically for IT SMEs. There are expos which happen even in Europe. There are so many expos which take place in Europe, right? One good way to find these expos is one aggregator site which is called 10times.com. So if you go to 10times.com, you will see all those expos happening. ITSA also does a lot of expos for small enterprises, and they should participate in these. And that these events are all networking events. In the expo, not only there are booths. In fact, even the booth company are your prospective customers, because you can see partners. You can, if you get a speaking slot, you can meet governments there. A lot of, see, my understanding is that almost 20, if I don't have exact figure, but if I'm not wrong, 4 5 years back, if I recall correctly, 20% of the entire IT market in US is government. So government business opportunity is also big, and you need to be registered as a vendor with the US government, which is very simple, and there is no fees to it, which can be done online, and you can then bid for those projects either together with some American company or yourself directly, if you have the capabilities which have been mentioned as a, you know what they want into your company. So these are some of the methods which can be used. And in fact, one new I did this one mentor on road. I have a project called Mentor on Road, where I drive around many countries. In 2017 I drove in US, from Boston to Tampa to San Diego, San Diego to Seattle, and Seattle to New York, over 82 days. And I found that a lot of Indian origin persons in US who are American citizens working in IT companies have spent 20, 25, 30 years and now want to start some business. So try to. There are also Indian associations in every city in US or and even in Europe. In every city in Europe, there is an Indian association, right? There is a saying that in whichever city there are three Indians outside India, there is an association, right? So, and a lot of people are from IT sector. So connect to some of them, friend, relative, or known people, and you will be able to do business with them.
So we have a comment, Jagaji, and I guess it's just highlighting the fact that Asha Keswani says, thank you for the reminder of institutional
Yes,
capital.
certainly,
Absolutely.
amazing.
Institutional capital
We,
can open doors which you can't even think of, I would say.
yes, yes.
So, guys, there you have it. Jagaji, one last thing, right, regarding setting up an office in the US. Typically, how expensive have you seen to set up a small office in US? How expensive can it get?
So you see, registration of a company would not cost you anywhere beyond $1,000, depending on the location and many other factors. But and then you need a space. So there are a lot of co-working space. Yeah, there are a lot of because co-working space and innovation hubs and accelerators are so much popular in US. And you can start by taking a space in a co-working space, which is almost the rentals of that would be almost equal to any co-working space rent in India. Right? So you can start with a one seat. The only thing which you will need is a workforce. I mean, you will need some person there to do the for the sales work. So that is the cost which you have to look at, because that cost is very variable depending on what level of person. Because if you take a junior person, then they may not have the network to get the business. If you take a mid level or senior person, then the salaries will be high. So that is the only factor which you have to consider. Otherwise, it's not a big deal. It's not a very big cost. It just requires that a little bit of a research to be done in it. I don't tell companies to suddenly jump. Don't do that. Never ever do that. Do your homework well. We, particularly in SMEs, either manufacturing or IT, we are not we doing our homework in advance. Do market research and do all the calculations, and just look at the worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario? And if that is something which you have the appetite for and you have a budget, then go ahead with it.
Absolutely. So, guys, there you have it. How do you approach from a strategic perspective and from a tactical perspective, setting up your operations there, approaching folks, joining associations, taking advantage of institutional capital? Let's move on. By the way, before I talk about our next segment, do you can actually ask your questions in the comment section below on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So let us know if you have any questions, and we will definitely take it up. So Jagatji, the next part is the future outlook and opportunities. How do
Yeah,
you
so sorry,
expect?
Nikhil. Yeah, so let me also add some part here. Is like so if you see some of the one good way of looking at entering these markets is if you see the successful IT companies, right? Particularly if you see in US today, if you see TCS has 50,000 people in US. 250 of the Fortune 500 companies are their customers, right?
Wow.
Wipro has 20,000 people in US. HCL has 22,000 people in US, right? So all these companies, they when they started, they had only one person, right? One, two persons. I know some of them, right? So that is something, yeah. So that is something where it starts, but see where it goes, right?
So
And
personally, do you have any specific story you'd like to share about this, like early
there
stages
are
of
many
Indian
stories,
IT?
but there are many stories, but they are very big companies. I will have to take their permission.
Don't say their names, of course. I am
No,
just saying some examples.
in fact, there is a top five company of India which I recall in 1999 I visited Canada with them, and that was the first Canadian export order in IT which that company got. And the promoter of that company and me were used to stay in one room in a twin separate double bed because he said I can't afford two rooms, right? And Today it's a big company of India. But look at the start, and that was the first Canadian government IT outsource project which that company got. So there are many such success stories. But I mean, all of them are of those times when the companies were very small, right? Yeah. So and again, let me tell you, like overall, if you see the success story, look at a company like TCS. What is TCS today? I told you 50,000 people in US, 600,000 employees in TCS. They have people from 154 nationalities.
Wow.
They are in 46 countries. They're the first company to cross market cap of $100 billion.
Right.
I told 250 of the Fortune 500 companies are their customers, and
Right.
$27 billion in sales.
Right.
Now a lot of people will say, "Oh, TCS is big. Why to give?" But they were a small company one day. Every big company of today was small one day. We must just see
Right.
that what trajectory they took, at what time they took what type of decisions, and that is going to be big. And then also, I have always keep saying that innovation is key. Innovation is key to success, whether you are manufacturing or service, even in IT. So innovation, specialization, value addition, these are some things. Just 2 days back, I was meeting someone from US.
Hmm.
He told me a very interesting thing which can be taken as an innovation case study. So there is a fashion designer in US who
Okay.
has been very popular name. Again, I am not able to say, but very popular name. And the fashion designer designs this clothing since 30 years,
Okay.
and is getting old, and thinking that how my company will now survive because I am the main designer. Now there is an IT company which I met, an IT SME, who are using AI. They are taking up all the designs which this company has done in five years, gaps, putting up and then seeing the trend of how design has changed, and then doing a predictive analysis that what will be the design for 2025.
Right.
Not only the design, fashion design, but also the price, that okay, in this 5 year period these were the designs. Even they are breaking up into yearly, and then see that okay, now what price could be for the future. So see how this is called value addition, this is called innovation. In every sector this can be done, even
Yeah. So
government.
we're gonna talk a little bit more about AI, but the closing remarks for the past thing, right? Why you should be ambitious in this and have large dreams and just go after them aggressively. This
Correct.
was a small article which Jagachi had shared with me. And I couldn't, I mean, I was very surprised by this, but it's
True.
amazing. And like 50% of Tata Group's value comes only from TCS.
Yeah.
So like as a business it's massive. You can read
True.
here, and it's surpassed an entire country's valuation, which pretty much started the same time we did.
Correct.
So
True.
absolutely incredible. Let's move on to the future, Jagatji, which is
Hmm.
future outlook. What are some trends you're seeing? What would you tell to some of the entrepreneurs? And what are like, let's start with that, and then maybe we'll get into other initiatives.
So the future is AI, future is cloud computing, future is digital transformation. So whatever processes are being followed because of the huge and massive disruption taking place due to AI, every company in developed country is looking at digital transformation of their existing processes, business processes, as well as big data analytics, right? Internet of Things, cloud computing. Uh, the best benefit of cloud computing is cost benefit, right? So let me give you this example. So I still remember a company, again, top five companies of IT in the world. I was working with for 3 years on a consulting assignment, and they were trying to promote their ERP, and it was a on-site ERP, and it was costly. And industry was saying it is very costly, we can't afford, because it was targeted towards SMEs. But the moment that company came out with a cloud-based ERP, within a year they had 20x jump in SME customers. So
Wow.
cloud-based ERP is very low cost per user per month, very much affordable. So that is something which if we want higher adoption, then cost is something which I have always felt that in India, IT adoption by manufacturing segment, particularly SMEs, have been low for two reasons. One is, of course, the cost part of it, and the second is the education part of it. That how does it benefit the company, right? But the cost part of it now has been taken care of through a lot of cloud-based services, and I think the education part has to be taken up. But I think the future, of course, we all know is AI, and it is moving so fast, and there are a lot of Indian IT companies who are doing very well in that space. So it is only going to grow.
Perfect. Let's move on. Any government initiatives you want to highlight to all of our listeners?
So if you look from the government of India perspective, then in the last budget this year, actually, there is a budget allocation of $12 billion, 98,000 crore rupees for the IT and telecom sector. So my philosophy has always been that from the government when there is a allocation, budget allocation, it drives the entire economy towards that, because today the revenue collection by the government through taxes is very high, and one of the reasons of that again is IT, because leakages have been plugged, and the systems have been made very simple. I still remember, like, uh, 10, 12 years back, I used to file all my returns physically. There was a physical forms we used to go and submit. My chartered accountant would submit into an income tax office. And GST or sales tax also, those days sales tax. Now it is all online. I just submit online. Last year, if I'm not wrong, I saw some statistics. 95% of the income tax returns in India were electronically scrutinized. The person who scrutinized, I did not even know who is the person. They don't me, I don't know them. They don't know me, right? It 90% of the income tax refunds were issued within 10 days of the filing. It used to take 2 years. I remember 2 years, and my refund would come through a courier, through a written check, which I would deposit in bank. Now it comes to my bank electronically. I get an SMS on my phone. This much money deposited. I said, which is this payment? I don't recall. And suddenly, I, I say, okay, this is income tax refund. Look how life is easy, how ease of doing business is in place. So government has really done very well in terms of creating the IT infrastructure, making the life of people easy. And but I still feel that the government of India needs to do more in terms of market entry for IT SMEs in global markets. We need to have some kind of a program which will help the IT SMEs to have some cushion and some comfort feeling of some kind of a fund which will take them to export markets. Have your criteria of deciding what type of companies you want, what sectors you want, for which market you want. But government should work on that. It will give a big boost. And then, of course, e-commerce, government is trying to set up its own e-commerce portal also
Yeah,
for.
they're trying to push
Yes.
ONDC as a
Yes,
UPI.
ONDC, which is
Yeah,
good, which will help a lot of companies, even services sector.
right.
So that is service sector, and I was, if you recall, last time I was talking about non-IT service sector. There are 85 services other than IT, so those also should get promoted through ONDC, right?
My wife is an architect. I've been pushing her
Yes,
to consider
correct,
consider this because I
correct,
told her per square feet, if you're earning $100 instead of 100 rupees.
correct. True, true, true. In fact,
So
we at our Global Network Institute, we also run a service sector export training, and almost everyone from, particularly from IT, has been successful in entering export markets. Most people who join our program are not exporting, So we have this training in this month itself, 14 to 16 March. It is online training, morning 2 hours, evening 2 hours. We have students from all over world attending.
So,
So
guys, for
that
that, just
kind
check
of,
out the URL right below Jagatji's name, www.gniinstitute.com. You can find all the details there. But yeah, so there you have it, guys. So let me quickly summarize. First thing is, there'll have to be some level of research on your side for your organization structure, for your safety policies, for your cybersecurity policies, for your hiring policies, and all these things. This is something which is very important when you're trying to go after projects in the US, in Europe, where policies and government regulations on data, especially, has been increasing. Apart from that, if possible, if you want a long term large engagement, you want multi-million dollar contracts, you will have to get down and meet this person digitally. Of course, you can have some engagements, but if you're talking about multi-million dollar contracts, having a physical presence, there's nothing like it. uh, Going and meeting someone face to face. In fact, with export fundas, our first few episodes were face to face. So, just to tell you, right, that helps. I felt it helped a lot. I don't know about you, Jagaji. Just for me to understand that, how do we do this. So, and then it's not very complicated to set up your presence in these countries. It's relatively straightforward, so you shouldn't be hesitating for it. And there is a lot of push by the government. There is a lot of institutional capital which you may have ignored, which you should not ignore. Don't leave that on the table. And getting into these institutions, they're more than happy to encourage newer and newer organizations. uh, and as Jagaji said, India has just penetrated 11% of the global IT market. So the opportunity is still massive. And as more and more countries, more and more organizations across the globe move towards digital, this is the space, if you're an IT service guy, you want to be at. So anything else in conclusion, Jagaji?
I will only say, say that what are the new markets one should target? Like new markets, Latin America, there is a language challenge, but it can be solved. Southeast Asia, very big opportunity. Africa is next 20 years of opportunity. CIS countries, Russia, we are not doing much. We should grow in Russia, and most important, Middle East. If you look at Saudi Arabia is building $1 trillion city called Neom. It's a smart city. Smart city is everything about IT. If I was an IT SME, trust me, I would just simply fly to Saudi. I will spend 15 days, explore all opportunities, talking to government institutions, organizations. That if I am an IT company, here is my skill set, here is my abilities. Tell me what type of business would I do it, and open a company and register in Saudi. They are building 12 such cities. One is Neom,
Wow.
and from scratch. So that's the opportunity, right? Middle East, of course, Dubai, UAE. It has always been the hub. It is the second largest trading partner of India, and take part in exhibitions in these countries. In Saudi, there are a lot of IT exhibitions happening, and you can take part. Have some people there, partner with some companies there. A lot of government projects also in Saudi. So those new markets we should explore.
So there you have it, guys. Don't just look at US and Europe. Of course, those are huge markets, but also look at Saudi. These are the areas which may have been underserved, and you may have great potential there. So, guys, this was Export Funda's episode 4 on the Indian IT powerhouse. This episode will be available in audio format as well across Spotify and other podcast networks. And please do subscribe for more content like this. And if you have any questions, you can write to us on exportfundas.com and we'll definitely reply. Do check it out. Thank you so much for watching. See you all in our next episode. Bye. Bye, Jagatji.
All right. Thank you, Nikhil. Wonderful.